The sun hung low over Tarkwa Bay, spreading a warm golden glow across the Lagos shoreline. Waves rolled gently onto the sand, washing against the feet of Emeka, a young man whose life had been nothing but frustration and disappointment for months. He had come to the beach that evening not for relaxation, but to clear his mind before deciding what to do next with his life. His job search had failed, his small electronics repair business had collapsed, his landlord had given him a warning. Lagos felt like a giant wall closing in on him. Emeka sat on the sand and buried his face in his hands. "Is this how my story ends?" he whispered to himself. But something strange happened. As the tide pulled back, he heard a soft melody, faint but beautiful, floating across the water. It was not coming from any speaker, nor from the groups of tourists laughing behind him. It was coming from the sea. Emeka lifted his head. The melody continued, drawing him in with a gentle pull he couldn't explain. His heart began to race as he walked closer to the water. That was when he saw her. A woman unlike anyone he had ever encountered stood at the edge of a rock formation slightly far from the crowded area. Her skin glowed softly under the evening sun. Her hair flowed freely behind her as if the ocean breeze obeyed her. She wore a long, unusual dress that shimmered like water. She turned, locking eyes with him. Emeka froze. She smiled, slow, confident, knowing. "You have been looking for answers," she said. Her voice felt smooth, like cool water on a hot day. Emeka stared, stunned. "Do I know you?" "No," she replied, "but I know you." His heartbeat quickened. Something about her felt both inviting and dangerous. She stepped closer, and though her feet touched no water, the sea responded with ripples. "My name is Zara, and I can show you how to make money in a way no one else can." Emeka blinked. "Are you a scammer?" he asked, instinctively stepping back. She laughed softly. "If I wanted your money, would I appear like this?" She gestured toward the shimmering dress. The fabric shifted colors like sunlight moving through water. Emeka tried to calm himself. "What exactly are you offering?" "Opportunity," she whispered. "Real opportunity. Wealth that does not disappear. Wealth that obeys you." He swallowed hard. "How?" Zara stepped closer. "You must bring me things from your world, things that are ordinary to you, and I will show you what is possible." Emeka hesitated. "Why me?" Zara tilted her head slightly. "Because you are desperate, because you are willing to believe, and because I choose you." The words sank into him slowly, like the tide pulling at his feet. A cold breeze moved through the air, but Zara stood unaffected, her eyes fixed on him, as if she could see every hidden thought. "Come back tomorrow," she said gently. "Bring something small, and I will teach you the first lesson in wealth." She touched his hand lightly, just for a moment. Emeka felt a strange wave move through him. He didn't understand it. He didn't know if he should be afraid. He didn't know if he should run. All he knew was that Zara's presence felt impossible to walk away from. When he looked at the spot again, she was already gone. And Emeka stood alone on the beach, unsure whether he had just met a blessing or the beginning of his greatest mistake. The next morning, Emeka barely slept.
Zara's voice echoed in his mind over and over again. He tried to convince himself it was all imagination. Maybe stress was playing tricks on him. But deep inside, he felt something real had happened to Tarqua Bay. By noon, he found himself pacing in his small one-room apartment in Surulere. The ceiling fan rotated lazily above his head, making a faint clicking sound, but it did nothing to quiet the noise inside him. "Bring something small," she had said. But what did she mean? A cup? A stone? A phone? He finally picked up the only object he wasn't afraid to lose, an old metal wristwatch with a cracked face. It had belonged to his late uncle, but was too damaged to repair or sell. He wrapped it carefully and placed it in his pocket. By late afternoon, Emeka boarded a boat back to Tarqua Bay, feeling ridiculous but compelled. The sea breeze brushed against his face as seagulls circled overhead. Tourists laughed and children ran around, but Emeka felt disconnected from them. All he thought about was Zara. He reached the same spot as yesterday. The waves moved gently. The air hummed with an odd stillness. Then he heard it, the melody. Soft, floating, calling. Emeka's heartbeat doubled. He followed the sound to the rock formation. She was there. Just as before, Zara stood with her back turned, her shimmering dress glowing as if it were woven from sunlight on water. This time, when she turned to him, she smiled wider. "You came back," she said. Emeka swallowed. I wasn't sure if yesterday was real." "And now?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "I believe something happened." "Good." Zara stepped closer. "Show me what you brought." He pulled the old wristwatch from his pocket and extended his hand. Zara took it gently, turning it over between her fingers. "This is perfect," she said. "For what?" Emeka asked, confused. "To show you what you do not yet understand." She placed the wristwatch in her palm. Then she closed her fingers around it softly, not tightly, not with force, just a single slow squeeze. A faint glow escaped between her fingers. When she opened her hand, Emeka gasped. The wristwatch was no longer metal, no longer old, no longer cracked. It had transformed into a tiny, perfectly sculpted golden bracelet, shining as if it had been made by a master jeweler in Italy. Emeka stepped back. What did you do?" he asked breathlessly. "I changed it." "How?" he asked, breathlessly. "That is not your first lesson. Your first lesson is this: not everything valuable begins valuable." Emeka's mind raced. He had never seen anything like this. Not in Lagos, not online, not anywhere. No trick, no illusion, no explanation made sense. "You can turn anything to gold?" he whispered. Zara smiled softly. "I can change things into what they truly desire to be. Gold is only one possibility." Emeka stared at the bracelet. "Is this real gold?" "Yes," she answered. "Go to any jeweler in Lagos. They will confirm it." His hands trembled slightly. Wealth, real wealth, glimmered right before his eyes. Zara's voice grew gentle. "Bring me more objects, not always valuable, but meaningful, and I will teach you the secrets you seek." "What do you want in return?" Emeka asked carefully. Her eyes softened, but something unreadable flickered behind them. "For now," she said, "only your visits." The wind blew across the water, lifting strands of her hair. She looked like a vision, yet so tangible that Emeka couldn't walk away. "Tomorrow," she whispered, "bring something else, something that has seen life." Before he could ask what she meant, she stepped backward, and just like yesterday, she vanished into the sea air as though she had dissolved into the brightness around her. Emeka stood there, overwhelmed. He had come seeking answers. Instead, he had found a woman who could turn impossibility into reality, and wanted him to come back again. As the boat carried him back towards Lagos Island, Emeka kept staring at the golden bracelet in his hand. His life had just changed. He knew it. He felt it. But he also sensed something deeper. Whatever Zara wanted in return, he was not ready for it. The next morning, Emeka woke with a restless energy he had never felt before. The golden bracelet on his bedside table glinted in the first rays of sunlight, and each time he looked at it, his mind raced with possibilities. Wealth, comfort, a life free from worry. It all seemed within reach, just a small step away. But there was one problem. Zara's terms were vague. He didn't fully understand what she meant by "bring me objects." By midday, Emeka decided he had no choice. He needed to see if yesterday's miracle could be repeated. He went around his small Lagos apartment, gathering ordinary items he thought might hold some significance. A cracked mug he had used every morning for years, a pair of worn sandals, a notebook filled with scribbled ideas that never amounted to anything. Each item was small, mundane, yet meaningful to him in a personal way. Carrying the bundle, he made his way back to Tarkwa Bay. The city's noise faded as he approached the quiet stretch of sand where he first met Zara. The waves gently rolled, teasing his feet, as if inviting him closer. He could hear the faint, haunting melody again, floating over the water. Emeka's heart thumped. He was nervous, yet he could not resist. Zara emerged from the rocks as if she had been waiting for him, her presence commanding, yet strangely comforting. The sunlight caught her hair and the shimmer of her dress, making her look almost otherworldly. "You returned," she said, her voice calm and knowing, "and you have brought gifts." Emeka held out the small collection of objects. I don't know if these are enough," he admitted, his voice shaking slightly. "I'm trying to understand what you mean by bringing you objects." Zara stepped closer and inspected each item carefully. She picked up the cracked mug first, turning it over in her hands. A soft glow began to radiate from her fingers, faint at first, then stronger. The mug's cracked surface smoothed into polished ceramic, decorated with delicate patterns of gold. Emeka's eyes widened. He could hardly believe it. "This is remarkable," he whispered. "How do you do this?" "Not yet your lesson," Zara replied, her tone gentle but firm. "The first lesson is understanding value. Value is not always obvious. The ordinary can become extraordinary if seen the right way." She touched the sandals next, and they transformed into perfectly new leather shoes, smooth and shining. Then she moved to the notebook. As she ran her fingers along the cover, the scribbles seemed to lift from the pages, organizing themselves into clear, neat patterns. The paper shimmered slightly with golden letters. Emeka felt a mix of awe and fear. "So, each time I bring you something, you teach me a lesson?" Zara nodded. "Yes, and each lesson is part of the greater mystery, the art of wealth, the way the world rewards those who see beyond the surface." Emeka swallowed hard. "And what do you want in return?" he asked, remembering her words from yesterday. "For now, your commitment," she said, her eyes glimmering. "You will continue to come, bringing objects, learning the lessons. Nothing else, just this simple exchange." Emeka paused, thinking. This was too tempting to refuse. The temptation of wealth, the thrill of seeing the impossible happen before his eyes, was too powerful. I agree," he said finally, his voice firm. "I will do as you ask." Zara smiled, a mixture of warmth and something deeper, unreadable. "Good. Then your journey begins. Come back each day, bring something meaningful, and I will reveal more to you. But remember, Emeka, the lesson is never just in the object. The lesson is in you. how you understand it, how you value it. Emeka felt a thrill he could not contain. He had agreed to her terms, stepped fully into her world, and in that moment he felt the first stirrings of something greater than himself, a path to wealth, power, and a life he had never imagined. As he walked home, his mind raced with ideas of what to bring the next day. Each small item now held potential, each ordinary object a seed for unimaginable change. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a subtle, thrilling pull toward Zara, a force he did not yet understand, but one he knew would shape his destiny in ways he could not yet see.
Over the following weeks, Emeka's life began to shift in ways he had never imagined. At first it was subtle. Every morning he woke with a restless energy, a faint tingling in his fingers, as if they remembered the golden transformations from the day before. He carried ordinary objects around the city with a new purpose: a broken pen from a street vendor, a faded bracelet from a market stall, a chipped plate from his own kitchen. Each day he brought them to Zara at Tarkwa Bay, and each day they returned to him as something extraordinary. But it was not only the objects that changed. Emeka began to notice a shift within himself. His thoughts often wandered to Zara even when he was at home or among friends. He thought about her smile, the way her hair seemed to ripple with the sunlight, the soft power in her voice. He was captivated in a way he could neither explain nor resist. And then there were the physical changes. A faint, golden shimmer seemed to cling to his skin when the sun touched him. It was barely noticeable, but he could feel it, a warmth beneath the surface of his flesh. His reflection in the mirror sometimes startled him. There was a glow he had never seen before, a glimmer of something unnatural. Emeka found himself visiting Zara daily, almost compulsively. Even if he had errands, even if he was tired, he felt an irresistible pull toward the cove. The sea seemed to call him. Sometimes when he was late, he imagined her standing on the rocks waiting for him, her eyes calm but knowing. Zara's lessons also grew more complex. She no longer simply transformed objects into gold. She taught him to see the potential in everything. A broken street lamp could be envisioned as a lamp that lit up an entire room. A worn shoe could become the most fashionable piece in Lagos. A discarded notebook could hold the blueprint for a business that would change a neighborhood. Emeka's mind expanded with each lesson, his creativity fueled by the tangible proof of Zara's power. Yet alongside the excitement, he felt a deepening unease. The more he learned, the more he desired, not only wealth, but the approval and attention of Zara herself. He began to realize that each golden transformation came with a subtle cost, a part of his independence, a part of his normal life, a part of his comfort with the world he once knew. He noticed how his friends in Lagos barely recognized him anymore. When he laughed or told stories, his mind often wandered back to the cove. Even while working at his small repair shop, he imagined turning his tools into golden instruments, his hands shaping unimaginable wealth. One evening, as the sun dipped into the horizon and painted the water gold and crimson, Emeka paused on the beach. He looked out at the waves and felt a shiver run through him, not from the wind, but from an awareness that he was becoming someone else. Zara's influence had begun to intertwine with his very being. He whispered to himself, almost afraid to speak aloud, "Am I still myself, or am I becoming hers?" The question lingered like the scent of the ocean, unanswered, yet he could not turn away. He had tasted the power of the golden transformations, he had glimpsed the path to unimaginable wealth, and he had begun to crave it more than he feared the cost. As Emeka walked home that night, the city lights of Lagos reflecting in his eyes, he felt excitement and unease. The cove had become a part of him, and Zara had become more than a teacher. She was a force he could not resist, a mystery he wanted to unravel, a power he desired more than he wanted to admit. And somewhere deep in the night, Emeka knew that the changes in him were only beginning. Weeks turned into months, and Emeka found himself completely immersed in the world Zara had introduced him to. Each day he brought objects from Lagos markets, street vendors, and even his own apartment. Zara transformed them into beautiful golden treasures, teaching him lessons about value, potential, and perception. Yet despite the wealth and knowledge, an unease grew in him, a feeling that there was more to Zara than she revealed. It happened one late afternoon. The sun was dipping toward the horizon, casting a deep orange glow across Tarqua Bay. Emeka had brought a simple wooden comb that he had found in a small market stall in Surulere. As he approached the cove, he noticed the air was still, unnaturally still, as if the waves themselves were holding their breath. Zara was waiting, as always, her shimmering form catching the sunlight. She held out her hand, and Emeka handed over the comb. But as she turned it in her fingers, a shadow seemed to pass over her features. For a brief moment, she no longer appeared entirely human. Her eyes glimmered with a strange, otherworldly light, and her skin seemed to ripple like liquid gold. Emeka froze. "Zara, what are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Zara's smile faltered just for an instant before returning to its usual warmth. "You are seeing too much, Emeka," she said softly. "Do not question what you do not understand. It is better for both of us if you accept what you see and leave it at that." "But I've been here for months," he protested, his heart pounding. "I've learned your lessons, brought you treasures, followed your instructions. Why are you hiding this from me?" Zara stepped closer, her presence both comforting and intimidating. "Some things are not meant to be known, Emeka. My true nature is part of the world you cannot yet comprehend. Curiosity can be dangerous." He hesitated. He could feel a pull toward her, an irresistible force that both frightened and fascinated him. The golden shimmer in her skin, the ripple of her hair, the faint glow around her hands. He realized that Zara was more than a teacher or a mysterious benefactor. She was a being of immense power, one whose influence reached beyond the shore, beyond Lagos itself. "And what happens if I refuse to accept it?" he asked cautiously. Zara's eyes softened, but there was a flicker of warning in them. "Then you risk losing everything you have gained, the lessons, the treasures, even yourself. But do not fear. As long as you trust and follow, there is nothing to harm you." Emeka felt both relief and unease. He wanted to trust her, wanted to believe that the golden treasures and the knowledge she offered were worth the growing sense of danger he could not name. Yet deep inside, he felt that the pull toward Zara was changing him, not just emotionally, but spiritually and perhaps even physically. Over the next few days, Emeka began noticing other signs of Zara's hidden nature. She could manipulate the waves subtly when she walked along the shoreline. Objects in her presence sometimes seemed to glow faintly before she touched them, and occasionally her voice carried a resonance that echoed faintly in his mind, like the memory of a song that could not be remembered but stirred a powerful feeling. Emeka realized something unsettling. He was no longer simply learning lessons about wealth. He was being drawn into a world where Zara's power extended far beyond golden transformations. She was a force, a presence, a being whose intentions were not entirely clear and whose desires might eventually surpass the limits of what he could comprehend or resist. That night, as he walked home through the streets of Lagos, the city lights reflecting in his wide, thoughtful eyes, he understood one thing clearly. Zara's lessons were only the beginning, and the hidden side of her, the side she had warned him never to question, would soon demand more than Emeka had ever imagined giving. The following morning, Emeka woke to a restless mind and a sense of unease. Though he had grown accustomed to bringing Zara objects and receiving golden transformations, there was a new tension in the air, one he could not shake. He remembered the faint glow in her eyes the other day, the ripple of her skin, and the feeling that she was far more than she appeared. Today, he sensed something different, something heavier. He arrived at Tarqua Bay just as the sun began its ascent, spilling gold and orange across the waves. The cove seemed quieter than usual. There were no children playing along the shore, no fishermen passing by.
only the gentle sound of the tide and the faint, haunting melody that always heralded Zara's presence. She emerged from the rocks as he approached, her dress shimmering like liquid sunlight. But this time, her smile carried an unusual intensity, a kind of expectation that made Emeka's stomach tighten. "Emeka," she said softly, "you have served me well. Your dedication does not go unnoticed." He offered the small bundle of objects he had brought, a clay pot, a small bronze key, and a folded piece of cloth from a street vendor's stall. Each was ordinary, yet to him they held meaning, a connection to the life he knew. Zara took them one by one, and as always, transformed them with a graceful motion of her hands. The clay pot became a gleaming gold vase, the bronze key turned into a delicate golden ornament, and the cloth shimmered, woven with golden threads that caught the sunlight. Emeka's heart raced, not just at the beauty of the creations, but at the thrill of seeing the impossible become real once more. When she finished, Zara's expression shifted. Her eyes seemed to search his, studying him in a way that made him feel exposed. "Emeka," she said finally, her voice soft but firm, "there is something I wish for you to do. A task unlike the others. It is not simple, and it may challenge your courage. Are you ready to hear it?" Emeka hesitated. He had grown to trust her, but there was an edge of fear beneath the awe. I am ready," he said, trying to steady his voice. Zara stepped closer, her golden form glowing in the morning light. "I want you to bring me something unique," she said. "Not just valuable, but rare. Something from the heart of the land or the depths of the river. A symbol of life, power, and strength. Only when you present this will the next lesson be revealed to you." Emeka's brow furrowed. "Something from the heart of the land or the river? How will I know what is worthy?" Her eyes softened, but there was a spark of mischief. "You will know when you see it. Your judgment, your perseverance, and your understanding will guide you. Remember, Emeka, the lesson is not merely in the object, it is in you, in your ability to see what others cannot." For the first time, Emeka felt the weight of her words. This was no longer about simple treasures. This was a challenge, a test, a way to measure his spirit. He nodded slowly, determination mixing with apprehension. "I will find it. I will bring you what you ask." Zara smiled, the sunlight catching the shimmer in her hair. "I know you will, Emeka, and when you do, you will see the next truth of wealth, not just how to create it, but how to wield it wisely, and perhaps how it shapes the heart that holds it." As he walked back to the city, Emeka could not shake the feeling that this task was different. The stakes felt higher, the pull toward Zara stronger. He thought of the city streets of Lagos, of the rivers that twisted through the land, of the hidden corners he had never explored. Somewhere within those spaces lay the object she sought. Somewhere within those challenges lay the next step in his transformation. And deep down, Emeka knew this was only the beginning. The morning after Zara's strange request, Emeka could barely eat or focus. Her words echoed in his mind. "Your judgment, your perseverance, and your understanding will guide you." She wanted something from him, not just effort, not just loyalty, but something more personal, something he wasn't sure he could give. He walked through the bustling streets of Lagos, past the crowded markets of Balogun and the honking chaos of the traffic on Carter Bridge, trying to convince himself that he could find the courage to fulfill her request. Yet a knot of unease twisted in his stomach. Each step reminded him of the golden treasures she had created for him, each lesson she had taught, and the subtle pull she had over him. When he reached Tarkwa Bay, he found Zara waiting on the rocks, her golden form glowing under the midday sun. The waves lapped gently at her feet, yet there was a tension in the air that made Emeka pause. Her eyes were fixed on him, shimmering with a force he had never seen before, part fury, part disappointment, part something he could not name. "Emeka," she said, her voice softer than usual, but carrying an edge that made his heart race. "Your judgment, your perseverance, and your understanding will guide you. You have brought me treasures, learned my lessons, and proven yourself. You have seen the power I can grant you, and yet you hesitate now." Emeka swallowed hard, gripping the small bag of objects in his hands. "Zara, I cannot do this," he said finally, his voice shaking. "Everything you have shown me, everything you have given, I am grateful. I understand the lessons. I appreciate the wealth. But this is beyond me. I cannot give you what you ask." For a moment, the air seemed to still completely, the seagulls silent, as if listening. Then Zara's expression shifted, her golden glow intensified, her hair rippling like molten sunlight. "You dare refuse me?" she said, her voice rising. "I have guided you, taught you, given you the power to transform objects into gold, and yet you will not give me the one thing I desire?" Emeka's knees felt weak. I don't understand. It's not that I don't want to serve you. I cannot go that far. It's beyond what I can do. Please, Zara, understand." Her eyes flashed, sharp as lightning over the bay. "Understand? You think I do not understand? You think I do not know what is within you? You have taken my guidance, my lessons, my gifts, and now you refuse the single thing I ask in return?" Emeka stepped back instinctively, feeling the weight of her anger pressing down on him. The waves seemed to rise subtly around her, as if the sea itself mirrored her fury. "I did not come here to defy you," he stammered. "I came to learn, to grow, to understand. But this, I cannot." Zara's laughter, sharp and bright, cut through the air. "You are human, Emeka, fragile, limited, yet you reach for greatness. That is why I chose you. That is why I gave you wealth, insight, and guidance. And yet now, when I ask for the smallest repayment, you hesitate. You disappoint me." Emeka's chest tightened. He wanted to explain, to plead, to reason, but the words lodged in his throat. He felt both fear and defiance. "I cannot lose myself," he thought. "I cannot give up who I am, not even for her." Zara stepped closer, her golden presence nearly blinding in the sunlight. "Very well," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "If you will not give what I ask, then you will feel the weight of refusal. You will learn that the power I grant is not without consequence." Emeka's heart pounded. He had refused, but he sensed that the cove, the sea, and Zara herself had become far more dangerous than he had imagined. The waves licked the rocks, and Emeka knew, deep down, that the consequences were already coming.
Emeka had barely caught his breath when the sea around the cove began to churn violently. Waves rose higher than he had ever seen, slamming against the rocks with a deafening roar. The wind whipped his hair across his face, and the haunting melody that usually welcomed him now carried a sharp, commanding tone. He turned to Zara, and the golden glow of her form had intensified to a brilliance that made him shield his eyes. "Emeka," she said, her voice echoing like thunder over the water, "you have refused the only thing I desire in return for what I have given you, and yet you will not leave untouched." Before he could react, a wave of shimmering golden light shot from her hands, encircling him. It was warm at first, almost comforting, but as it wrapped around him, Emeka felt his body lifted from the sandy shore. The sensation was both terrifying and exhilarating. The light pressed against his skin, crawling over every inch of him like molten silk, and he felt a strange pull that he could neither resist nor understand. He tried to step back, to resist, but his feet no longer touched the ground. The world around him shifted.
Lagos faded away, the bustling markets, the honking traffic, the voices of street vendors all disappeared into a swirl of light and water. Emeka found himself suspended in a strange, glowing realm. The sky above him was not sky at all, but a vast liquid expanse of shimmering colors. Waves of gold, teal, and deep indigo stretched infinitely, and strange creatures swam through the currents as if gravity itself had no meaning. Schools of luminous fish glided past, leaving trails of sparkling light, and enormous shapes, part fish and part something he could not name, moved in silent grace. Emeka's heart raced. The beauty of this world was breathtaking, unlike anything he had ever seen. Yet at the same time, it filled him with fear. The sheer scale, the strange forms of life, the unfamiliar physics, everything was overwhelming. He felt small, human, and fragile in a way he had never known. Zara floated toward him, her golden form radiant and terrifying. "This is my realm, Emeka," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "A world beyond your land, beyond your rivers, beyond what you have ever imagined. You will experience it fully, and you will understand that my gifts are not without cost." Emeka's body trembled. He looked at her, trying to comprehend her power. Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice shaking. "I have learned your lessons, brought you treasures. What more do you want from me?" Zara's eyes glimmered with a strange intensity, part anger, part something inscrutable. "I gave you wealth, knowledge, and vision. You have tasted power and beauty, yet you refuse the one thing I ask, the simplest request. You must see the consequences of refusal, Emeka. You must understand that the world I offer is not gentle for those who defy it." The golden light around him shifted again, and Emeka felt his senses heighten. He could hear the faint hum of currents, feel the movement of creatures around him, see colors that seemed impossible. It was magnificent, intoxicating, and terrifying all at once. Yet in the midst of awe, a sharp edge of fear cut through him. He realized how vulnerable he truly was, small, human, and entirely at the mercy of Zara's power. As he floated there, suspended between wonder and terror, Emeka understood something critical. He had crossed a line. He had refused. And now the consequences were not theoretical, they were real, immediate, and overwhelming. And somewhere deep within the currents, he sensed that this was only the beginning of what Zara could do.
Emeka awoke, or perhaps he had never truly slept, in a world that defied all logic. The golden light that had bound him to Zara's realm now hummed softly around him, and the currents carried him effortlessly through the shimmering expanse. Every movement felt like floating through sunlight itself, yet the vastness of the realm reminded him of how small and human he truly was. It did not take long for him to notice he was not alone. Creatures of every imaginable form swam gracefully around him. Some had scales that glimmered like molten silver, others had wings like translucent sails, and many bore faces that seemed almost human, yet otherworldly. They paused as he passed, curiosity in their eyes. Emeka felt the thrill of being observed, a mix of admiration and apprehension. "Do they like me?" he asked quietly, glancing at Zara. She hovered beside him, radiant and unyielding, her golden form brighter than the surrounding waters. "They do," Zara replied, her voice soft but carrying authority. "Some admire your courage and strength. Others envy your presence, your proximity to power. You are no longer a visitor, Emeka. You belong here. To me." Emeka swallowed hard, processing the weight of her words. Belonging to her was not simply companionship. It meant submission, a surrender to a world far beyond the human life he had known.
The admiration of the mystical beings brought a fleeting pride, but beneath it simmered unease. As the days passed, Emeka began to meet many of the realm's inhabitants more closely. He encountered the Lumari, a species of light-bearing creatures who communicated through soft glows and patterns that flickered across their skin. They often approached him, studying his human features and golden-tinged skin with fascination. Some whispered in melodic tones, clearly impressed by his courage and intellect. Yet not all were pleased. A group of water nymphs, led by a striking figure named Seraphina, watched him warily. Her eyes held a sharp gleam, and she often murmured to her companions whenever Emeka passed, a mix of envy and territorial instinct. Emeka quickly realized that even in this mystical realm, power and attention bred rivalry. Zara never let him out of his sight. Wherever he floated, she was there, her presence both comforting and binding. "Do not be deceived by admiration or envy," she warned one evening as they glided past a school of glowing fish. "You are here because I chose you. Others may look upon you with longing or malice, but your place is beside me. You belong to me, and I will ensure it remains so." Emeka swallowed hard, feeling both pride and confinement. The golden lessons, the treasures, the awe-inspiring realm, all of it came at a cost. He understood that while others might admire him, he was bound not only by golden threads, but by the will of Zara. Still, the realm was intoxicating. He learned to move with the currents, to navigate through schools of shimmering fish, and to converse with beings whose forms defied imagination. The more he explored, the more he realized that this world was rich, deep, and alive, yet it was also a gilded cage, beautiful but binding. Sometimes, in the quiet moments when Zara's presence softened, Emeka wondered if he could find a way to live freely here, or if freedom had been lost the moment he refused her first request. And yet, the admiration of others, the whispers of envy, and the knowledge that he was no ordinary human kept him cautiously fascinated, reluctant to turn away entirely from this strange, enchanting life. As Emeka floated among the mystical currents that night, he felt a strange mix of awe, fear, and longing. He was powerful in ways he had never imagined, but he was also tethered to a being whose will eclipsed his own. And in that realization, he understood the complexity of life in Zara's realm, mesmerizing, intoxicating, and dangerous beyond measure. Emeka had begun to find a rhythm in Zara's realm, moving through its shimmering currents with a growing sense of ease. Yet, as he explored the luminous expanse with her at his side, he began to notice something unsettling. Among the mystical beings, one figure observed him with intensity that made his skin prickle. A powerful sea woman named Seraphina. Seraphina was unlike any other being Emeka had encountered. Her long, iridescent hair flowed like molten silver, her eyes glimmered with an almost predatory light, and her presence radiated both authority and confidence. She was tall, graceful, and exuded a strength that could command respect or fear with a single glance. Whenever Emeka approached a gathering of the Lumari or other mystical beings, Seraphina would surface, her gaze fixed solely on him, a silent challenge lingering in the air. One evening, as the golden currents of the underwater realm shimmered around them, Emeka swam past a grove of luminous coral. He sensed someone trailing him, a quiet, deliberate movement. He turned and met Seraphina's eyes, and for the first time he felt a mix of fear and fascination. "You have grown bold, human," Seraphina said, her voice smooth and commanding, echoing through the waters. "You move among us as though you belong. Yet I see you, as one who could be mine. Emeka's heart pounded. Mine? He repeated, uncertain whether she was speaking metaphorically or literally. Yes, she replied, gliding closer. Your human cleverness, your courage, your resilience, they are rare here, rare enough that I am willing to claim them for myself. Before Emeka could respond, Zara appeared in a flash of golden light, materializing between him and Seraphina. Her eyes flared, the golden shimmer around her intensifying like molten fire. She belongs to me, she declared, her voice carrying authority that reverberated through the waters. I brought him here, I granted him knowledge and power, and no one, no being, no matter how strong, will take him from me. Seraphina's expression hardened, though she did not retreat. You cannot bind what can choose, she said coldly. He is clever, courageous, and his spirit is untamed. Perhaps you have underestimated the depth of his desire, or fear. He may yet slip through your grasp. Zara's golden form surged with light, casting long radiant shadows across the surrounding coral. Try him if you dare, she said, her words carrying both a warning and a challenge. But remember this, I do not forgive, and I do not yield. Emeka is mine, and he will remain so. Emeka felt a strange mix of emotions, pride that Zara considered him hers, fear at the intensity of her protectiveness and the latent power he sensed in Seraphina, confusion at the realization that in this world even admiration could turn into rivalry. Over the next few days, tension grew in the realm. Seraphina would appear frequently, always watching, always testing. Sometimes she would speak to Emeka in subtle tones, offering praise, encouragement, or hints of flattery meant to sway him. Each time Zara would be nearby, her golden aura a constant reminder that Emeka was under her watchful protection. Emeka began to understand the delicate balance he now navigated. Every interaction carried risk. Admiration could turn into envy, guidance to manipulation. And while he felt drawn to Zara, he could not ignore the allure and power Seraphina radiated. One evening, as the currents carried him alongside Zara through a forest of luminescent kelp, Emeka realized that the rivalry between the two powerful beings would shape his life in this world more than anything else. His choices, his loyalty, and perhaps even his heart would be tested, and he could not yet see how far the consequences would reach. In Zara's realm, nothing was simple. Not loyalty, not friendship, and certainly not love. And as Emeka swam in the glowing waters, he understood that the next challenges were already coming, unseen but inevitable.
As the days in Zara's realm passed, Emeka began to notice how the other mystical beings looked at him, not just with curiosity, but with admiration. Wherever he swam, creatures paused to watch him, some whispering among themselves, others gliding closer to offer greetings or gifts. Even the Lumari, with their shimmering lights and subtle forms, approached him eagerly, drawn by his human cleverness, courage, and the golden sheen of his skin. At first, Emeka felt honored. He had never imagined such attention, even in the human world of Lagos or Enugu. Here, he was not merely another face in the crowd. He was remarkable, almost legendary in the eyes of beings who had existed for centuries. The compliments and praise were intoxicating, and for brief moments, he forgot the binding power Zara held over him, the golden threads of her command that tethered him to her will. But it did not take long for him to notice the tension that followed his popularity. Zara, who had always been radiant and commanding, now carried a subtle edge of jealousy in her gaze.
Her golden glow would flare whenever Emeka interacted too closely with other beings, and she would float between him and those who approached, her presence both protective and possessive. "Emeka," she said one afternoon as they glided through a forest of phosphorescent coral, "you must understand something. Attention can be dangerous, admiration can breed envy, and envy can turn to chaos. You belong to me. Others may seek your favor, but it is mine to grant or deny." Emeka nodded, though inwardly he felt conflicted. He did not intend to provoke jealousy, nor did he wish to challenge her authority. Yet he could not help but respond to the curiosity and respect the other beings offered him. Even Seraphina, the powerful rival, seemed to take a particular interest in him, her eyes following his every move with a mixture of calculation and desire. The realm soon became chaotic. Groups of sea beings quarreled over small privileges: who would swim closest to Emeka, who would speak first, who would demonstrate skills in his presence. The disputes escalated from whispered arguments to heated displays of power. Fights broke out over nothing more than proximity, and the currents themselves seemed to swell with tension. Zara's golden aura flared whenever chaos erupted, her control stretching but never completely breaking. "Enough," she would command. Yet, the moment she relaxed, the creature's attention would return to Emeka. Each time he felt a mixture of guilt and frustration. His presence, so admired, had inadvertently disrupted the harmony of this underwater world. Emeka began to understand that his popularity was a double-edged sword. It brought recognition, respect, and fascination, but it also stirred envy, rivalry, and conflict. And all the while, Zara's possessiveness reminded him that he could never truly act freely without consequences. Despite the chaos, he could not deny the thrill of being admired by such beings of beauty and power. Some evenings, as the golden currents shimmered around him, he found himself floating alone, reflecting on his influence. He wondered if he could navigate the realm's social complexities without angering Zara or inciting Seraphina further. But deep down, he realized something unsettling. The more he became admired, the more dangerous his life became. The balance of loyalty, desire, and power was delicate, and he was at its center. For the first time, Emeka truly understood what it meant to live in Zara's realm, not just physically, but socially, emotionally, and politically. He was no longer just a human visitor. He was a figure whose every action could ripple through the currents, stirring chaos or commanding respect. And as he drifted through the glowing underwater forest, he knew that this new popularity was only the beginning of trials that would test his courage, loyalty, and perhaps even his heart.
Days in Zara's realm began to feel both enchanting and suffocating. Emeka had grown accustomed to the shimmering currents, the glow of phosphorescent coral, and the hypnotic beauty of the mystical beings. Yet, beneath the surface of admiration and fascination, a constant unease gnawed at him. Every glance from Zara reminded him that he was bound. Golden threads, invisible but unbreakable, tethered to her will. He had learned that even small gestures of rebellion were observed and noted. The way he interacted with other sea beings, the fleeting moments he lingered near Seraphina or the Lumari, all carried weight. Zara's jealousy was subtle but sharp. Her golden aura would flare in quiet warning whenever he strayed too far, a reminder that she considered him hers entirely. It was during one of these quiet moments, as he floated through a vast underwater meadow of luminous kelp, that Emeka realized he had no choice. He had to escape. There would be no negotiation, no bargaining with Zara.
She had made it clear that her control was absolute, and her gifts, while intoxicating, were also a cage. He began to plan carefully, pretending outwardly that he enjoyed the life she offered. He laughed at her jokes, swam alongside her gracefully, and even participated in the gatherings of mystical beings with apparent delight. But in his mind, every motion, every smile, every conversation was calculated. He watched, he listened, and he waited for the perfect opportunity. Emeka also studied the other beings. He observed their strengths and weaknesses, their habits, and their reactions to Zara's presence. Even the rivals, like Serafina, were constrained by Zara's power, but perhaps not entirely. He wondered if subtle alliances could be formed, if their curiosity or envy could be turned into a distraction when the moment came. The key, he realized, was timing. Zara's attention was absolute, but she could not be everywhere at once. She trusted the realm's natural currents and the loyalty of certain creatures to maintain balance. If she could create a moment when her focus was drawn elsewhere, perhaps during one of her rare excursions or demonstrations of power, she might find a window to slip away. He also considered the physical limits of the realm. Though the currents were vast, there were boundaries, cliffs of coral too dense to navigate freely, deep trenches where even the most powerful creatures rarely ventured. Emeka imagined plotting a route through these hidden paths, using knowledge of the terrain and the behavior of mystical beings to cover his escape. Yet, as he formed his plan, a part of him felt fear. He had seen Zara's wrath before, how quickly and completely she could overwhelm him with her power. One wrong move, one miscalculation, and he could be trapped forever, transformed beyond recognition, or worse, lost entirely in the undercurrents of her realm. So he moved cautiously, masking his intent behind a veneer of enjoyment. He complimented the Lumari, laughed with the playful spirits of the currents, and showed apparent awe at Zara's lessons and her creations. But in the quiet recesses of his mind, he was always plotting, always calculating, always imagining the moment he could regain the freedom of the surface world. For now, he was patient. He knew he needed every ounce of observation, every lesson, and every trick he could muster. Zara had given him power and knowledge, but she would never willingly release him. The path to freedom would be perilous, requiring cunning, courage, and careful timing. Emeka's golden skin shimmered in the dim light of the underwater world, a constant reminder of both his power and his captivity. And as he floated alongside Zara, smiling and laughing when required, he silently vowed one day he would return to the land of Lagos, free from her grasp, no matter the cost.
Emeka had studied the currents, the creatures, and the habits of Sarar and the mystical beings for weeks. Every day of apparent enjoyment in the underwater world had sharpened his mind and honed his understanding of the realm's intricate social dynamics. He knew that direct confrontation with Sarar would be futile. Her golden power was absolute, and any act of defiance could bring devastating consequences. Yet he also knew that distraction could be his greatest ally. One morning, as golden beams of light filtered through the upper currents, Emeka gathered the mystical beings around him. The Lumari glimmered brightly, hovering in anticipation, while even Serafina approached with a wary but curious glance. Sarar floated beside him, her golden aura blazing as she observed him closely, suspicion flickering in her eyes. "Emeka, I have a challenge for all of you," Emeka announced, his voice confident and carrying across the currents. "I seek two rare treasures, the left eye of the deep-sea shark and the right eye of the silver dolphin. Whoever brings them to me shall win my loyalty. I will be theirs, and I shall serve them for the rest of my days." A stunned silence fell over the gathering. Emeka's words were bold, audacious even. Every creature realized the stakes immediately. The rare eyes he described were known to be almost impossible to retrieve, hidden in the deepest, most dangerous parts of the underwater world. Many beings gasped, murmuring in disbelief. Sarar's eyes narrowed, suspicion and anger flickering in the golden glow of her gaze. "Enmeka," she said sharply, "what is the meaning of this? You would have us risk our lives for trivial games?" Emeka smiled innocently, the plan unfolding perfectly. "It is not a game. It is a test of loyalty and skill. Only the worthy may approach me. Surely, even you, Sarar, would not turn away a worthy challenge." Sarar's golden form flared, her light surging like molten metal in the water. She hesitated for a moment. Then, with a quiet determination, she accepted. "Very well," she said. "I shall participate. But remember, Emeka, such tests have consequences." Almost immediately, the currents erupted with movement. Sea beings of every shape and size surged into the deep trenches and hidden crevices, diving with remarkable speed and strength. The Lumari glided through the glowing waters with light-trailing precision. Seraphina shot past, her silver hair streaming like liquid metal, disappearing into the shadows of the deepest currents. Even Sarar dove with unparalleled force, her golden aura blazing as she pursued the impossible treasures. Emeka watched from the edge of the luminous coral plateau, his heart pounding with anticipation. This was the moment he had planned. With the realm's most powerful beings distracted, his chance to reach the surface and escape drew closer. Every creature focused on retrieving the rare eyes, and the golden currents buzzed with frantic energy. He felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Sarar's power was immense, and if she suspected his plan, she could stop him instantly. But for now, the diversion was working perfectly. He carefully studied the paths, currents, and hidden passages he had memorized over weeks of observation. Taking a deep breath, Emeka launched himself into a lesser-known current that led upward, weaving between luminous kelp and coral cliffs, keeping his movements swift but careful. Behind him, the sounds of the frantic search, the flicker of light from Lumari, the swish of Seraphina's tail, the golden streak of Sarar's pursuit filled the water. Yet they were all moving away from his planned escape route, drawn to the promise of the treasures he had conjured. As he ascended toward the lighter currents near the surface, Emeka felt a rush of hope. The golden glow of Sarar faded in the distance, though he knew she would eventually realize the trick. For now, though, the realm was chaotic, the sea beings distracted, and his opportunity to regain the world above had finally arrived. The plan was risky. One misstep, one miscalculation, and Sarar's wrath could descend upon him. But in that moment, floating toward the lighter waters, Emeka knew this was his only chance, his only way to reclaim freedom from the golden chains of her realm. Emeka felt his heart race as he swam through the lighter currents, the chaos of Zara's realm fading behind him. The plan had worked. The mystical beings, powerful and swift, were all racing through the depths, focused entirely on the challenge he had set. Even Zara, with her golden aura blazing, had been drawn into the hunt for the shark and dolphin eyes. Every stroke through the water brought him closer to freedom, each movement measured yet urgent. He had studied the currents carefully, memorizing every hidden passage, every twisting trench, and every path that led toward the surface. Now, with the realm's attention diverted, he navigated the secret route, weaving through luminous kelp and coral cliffs. His golden-tinted skin, which had once been a mark of his captivity, now shimmered faintly in the sunlight filtering down from above. It was a reminder of the world he was leaving behind, and of the power he had briefly touched, a dangerous yet intoxicating power he could not carry back with him. As he approached the surface, he felt the water grow warmer and lighter. The sounds of distant currents and creatures faded, replaced by the soft lapping of waves near the shore.
Emeka pushed himself harder, his arms burning, his lungs straining as he broke through the last of the shimmering layers into the open air. The surface of the Lagos Lagoon glimmered under the morning sun, and he gasped for the first true breath of freedom he had known in weeks. Exhausted and trembling, he pulled himself onto a small sandbank near the shore. The familiar smells of salt, mud, and the faint aroma of fish were both comforting and jarring. He looked at his reflection in the shallow water and froze. The golden hue still clung faintly to his skin, a vestige of Zara's power. It was not entirely natural, and it drew his attention with an eerie glow under the sunlight. Nearby, some fishermen noticed him struggling to his feet. Their eyes widened in shock. One of them dropped his net with a loud splash, while the others exchanged whispers filled with fear and awe. What is this?" one man asked, pointing at Emeka. "He looks different, not like any man I've ever seen." Emeka, panting and trembling, raised his hands in peace. "It's me, Emeka," he said, his voice hoarse but steady. "Please, help me. I need help." The fishermen hesitated, fear and curiosity battling within them. Finally, after some caution, they approached him, seeing the familiar features of a man they knew, even though his skin retained a strange golden sheen. Carefully, they helped him onto a small boat, muttering prayers and exclamations of astonishment. As the boat cut through the calm waters toward the city, Emeka recounted parts of his story, careful to leave out the more fantastical details. He spoke of being trapped in a strange underwater world, of golden gifts and dangerous beings, and of how he had narrowly escaped. The fisherman listened, skeptical yet unable to deny the truth in his golden-tinged appearance and the evident exhaustion that weighed on his body. By the time Lagos came into view, Emeka felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. The city, with its bustling markets, loud horns, and familiar streets, was both comforting and overwhelming. He had returned to the human world, yet a part of him remained tied to the realm below, the lessons he had learned, the magic he had touched, and the lingering fear of Zara's inevitable awareness of his escape. Even as the city drew nearer, Emeka understood one truth clearly. He was not the same man who had first encountered Zara. He had seen the beauty and danger of a world beyond human comprehension, and he had survived. And yet, freedom was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning of new challenges, decisions, and the haunting knowledge that Zara's realm was still out there, waiting, watching, and perhaps plotting her next move.
Emeka lay on a straw mat in the small village hut, exhausted and shivering. The Lagos sun beat down through the thin roof, warming his golden-tinged skin, but it could not chase away the lingering fear that clung to him. He had escaped Zara's realm, yet he knew deep inside that her influence was not gone. Every glance at his own hands reminded him of the golden hue, a symbol of the magic that still lingered in his veins. The villagers had gathered cautiously around him after the fisherman brought him to shore. Whispers of awe and fear swept through the crowd. Most had never seen such a transformation, and some even suggested he might be cursed or blessed by the spirits of the river. But the village elders knew better. They had heard tales of mystical beings who lived in deep waters, beings who could grant fortune, manipulate desires, and bind humans to their will. At their urging, the chief called for the village priest, a man known for his wisdom and deep knowledge of the old ways. His name was Obinna, a man whose voice could command attention even without raising it. Obinna arrived carrying a long staff etched with protective symbols and beads, his eyes sharp and discerning as he studied Emeka. "Sit, young man," Obina said, gesturing for Emeka to rise. "The waters you speak of, they are old, older than even the oldest river spirits. You speak of a being named Zara, yes?" Emeka nodded, his throat dry. "Yes, she is powerful. She taught me things, gave me wealth, and then she tried to keep me there forever. I escaped, but my skin, it is still golden, and I feel her power inside me." Obina's eyes darkened as he examined the golden shimmer on Emeka's arms and face. He raised a hand, tracing invisible patterns in the air. "This is no ordinary magic. Zara is a mystical being tied to ancient waters. Her connection to you is more than just influence. It is a bond of the deep, a weaving of your soul to hers. To return fully to the life of men, you must break this bond, but it will not be easy." Emeka swallowed hard, feeling the weight of Obina's words. "What must I do?" he asked, a mix of desperation and hope in his voice. Obina lowered his gaze, his expression grave. "The bond is tied to her will and to the currents of her realm. To sever it, the being who placed it must either release you willingly, or a ritual must be performed that transfers the power back into the waters, dissolving the connection. This ritual is dangerous. It may leave you weakened, vulnerable, or exposed to the very magic you seek to escape. Some have tried and failed. Some have been claimed forever by the beings they sought to flee." Emeka's mind raced. "And how does one perform this ritual? Is there a chance I can survive it?" Obina placed a reassuring hand on Emeka's shoulder, his grip firm. "There is always hope, but it requires courage, cunning, and timing. You must journey back to the place where the bond was made, confront the being, and invoke the ritual exactly as the spirits command. Any deviation may cost you your life or bind you even tighter." Emeka's heart sank. The thought of returning to the realm of Zara, the golden currents and the dangerous mystical beings filled him with dread. Yet he also understood there was no other path. To live freely, to return fully to Lagos, to reclaim his life among humans, he had to face her again. Obina continued, "You will also need tools and knowledge that only the old ways provide. Herbs, symbols, chants, and the strength of your own will. The ritual is as much about your spirit as it is about the magic itself. And beware, Zara is cunning. She may try to deceive or tempt you, even as you seek freedom." Emeka nodded slowly, absorbing the priest's guidance. He understood now that escaping her realm was only the first step. The real challenge lay ahead, the ritual, the confrontation, the test of his courage and cunning. But he also knew that without it, he would never truly be free. And as he sat in the humble hut, with the villagers murmuring prayers and Obina preparing the old symbols, Emeka realized that the journey to break Zara's bond had only just begun, and that every choice he made from this point forward could shape the rest of his life.
The village was quiet that evening, the sun sinking low over Lagos, casting long shadows across the riverbanks. Emeka sat alone on a wooden bench, staring at the glimmering water. The golden shimmer still lingered faintly on his skin, a constant reminder of Zara's presence in his life. Though he had escaped her realm, her influence had not completely left him, and it gnawed at his thoughts with relentless persistence. Emeka's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, he knew the danger of Zara's power, the way she had bound him to her realm, manipulated his desires, and almost kept him under her control forever. He understood now that his life among humans could never return to normal until the bond was fully broken. But on the other hand, he could not deny that Zara had changed him profoundly. She had taught him about wealth, about strategy, and about the subtle currents of human and mystical ambition alike. He ran his hands through his hair, feeling the faint gold dust on his fingers. Could he really bring himself to hurt her? She was not purely malevolent. There had been moments of genuine care, even if masked by possessiveness. He remembered the first time she had smiled at him, the golden light refracting off her hair, the way she had guided him through the currents of the mystical realm. In those moments she had seemed almost human, almost capable of love and trust. Yet he could not ignore the truth. She had trapped him, and returning to her underwater world even briefly meant surrendering his freedom once more. Every fiber of his being screamed caution, warning him that the slightest mistake could cost him everything. One wrong move in her realm could end his life, or worse, bind him permanently in ways no ritual could undo. Emeka clenched his fists, wrestling with the moral dilemma that had taken hold of him. How can I break her hold without betraying her completely? He murmured to himself. She changed me. She taught me things no human could know. And yet, if I do nothing, I am trapped forever. What kind of life is that? The villagers' distant voices reached him faintly, their chatter, their prayers, and the occasional splash from the river, but they could not soothe the storm inside him. Every path he considered seemed fraught with risk. Returning to Zara meant potential danger and moral compromise. Leaving her influence unbroken meant a life half-lived, always shadowed by the magic she had placed upon him. Emeka's thoughts drifted to the priest, Obinna. The old man's warnings echoed in his mind. The ritual would be dangerous, but it was the only way to regain full freedom. Courage, cunning, and careful timing would be his allies. But courage alone could not quiet the emotional conflict he felt. He did not want to hurt Zara, not entirely. She had been more than a captor. She had been a teacher, a guide, and even, in some strange and twisted way, a companion. He sighed deeply, staring into the river as the golden reflection of the sunset shimmered across the water's surface. "I must do this," he whispered, voice trembling. "I cannot stay half-bound forever. But how do I face her? How do I tell her that freedom is worth more than the bond we shared, without destroying what might have been?" Emeka understood that the choice ahead was not only about survival or freedom. It was about morality, loyalty, and the fragile balance between affection and self-preservation. He felt the weight of every moment in Zara's realm pressing down upon him, the lessons, the desires, and the unspoken attachments that had formed during his time under her watch. And as the night deepened over Lagos, Emeka realized that the dilemma he faced was as vast and deep as the waters Zara controlled, a moral and emotional storm that could shape the rest of his life.
The night was heavy with the sounds of Lagos, the distant honking of cars, the chatter of fishermen mending nets, and the rhythmic lapping of the river against the shore. Emeka sat quietly on a worn wooden bench, the golden shimmer on his skin dim in the moonlight, but still visible. He had spent the last few days in solitude, gathering his thoughts and preparing for the ritual that Obinna had described. Every step forward required patience, courage, and careful calculation. He had not expected her to find him so quickly. Yet, as the water near the riverbank began to ripple unnaturally, a familiar golden glow illuminated the night. The currents seemed to twist and turn unnaturally, and Emeka's chest tightened. He knew that presence anywhere.
Zara emerged from the water with a fluid grace, her golden hair fanning out like molten sunlight in the moonlit ripples. Her eyes, both beautiful and terrifying, locked onto him with a mixture of hurt, fury, and longing. The air of authority she carried radiated like a force field. Even the moonlight seemed to hesitate before touching her glowing form. "Emeka," she said, her voice smooth but edged with anger, "I warned you. You cannot escape me. You have left my realm, you have disobeyed, and yet you pretend as though you are free." Her golden aura pulsed, reflecting the moonlight in a way that made the water shimmer like liquid gold. Emeka swallowed hard. His heart pounded, not just from fear, but from the moral and emotional tension that gripped him. He had to buy time, to ensure that the ritual could be completed, and to prepare for whatever Zara might do next. He forced a calm smile, careful to appear conciliatory. "Zara," he began, his voice soft and steady, "I did not mean to hurt you. I only sought peace. I want us to understand each other." He gestured gently, keeping his hands visible to show he carried no weapons. "I have left because I needed time. Time to think, to process everything you have taught me." Zara's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in their depths. She floated closer, her golden hair trailing like a living flame through the water. "Time? You dare speak of time when you have abandoned the gifts I have given you? You flaunt my lessons as if they are yours alone, and yet you think words can hide your betrayal?" Emeka held her gaze, his mind racing. He needed to maintain the illusion that he respected her, that he was still bound by some sense of loyalty and gratitude, even as he planned his next moves. "I have learned so much from you, Zara," he said, earnestly. "I respect you. I only seek to live in the world above for a little while longer so that I may return with better understanding, not to defy you." Zara paused, her glowing eyes studying him, trying to pierce the truth beneath his words. The currents swirled around them, and even the river itself seemed to react to the tension. Emeka could feel the invisible weight of her power pressing against him, like a force that could pin him to the ground or drag him beneath the waves in an instant. Finally, she let out a long, slow breath, though her glow remained intense. "Very well," she said, her voice low and measured. "If your heart truly seeks understanding, for now I will restrain my wrath. But remember, Emeka, one false move, one act of deceit, and there will be consequences far greater than you can imagine." Emeka nodded, masking the fear and relief that surged through him. Inwardly, he was calculating the next steps, how to use this temporary reprieve to prepare for the ritual, to secure the tools and knowledge Obina had instructed him to gather, and ultimately to break free from her control permanently. As Zara drifted back into the river, her golden light fading into the night, Emeka realized that he had successfully bought himself precious time, but he also knew that she would not be gone for long. Every day now carried the weight of urgency, of strategy, and of the constant threat that the mystical bond he had narrowly escaped might find a way to reclaim him before he could finish what he had started. The night settled over Lagos once more, but Emeka's mind was alive with plans, calculations, and the ever-present fear that the mystical bond he had narrowly escaped might find a way to reclaim him before he could finish what he had started.
The river seemed to thrum with an unnatural energy that evening, as though it were alive with anticipation. Emeka had barely settled into a cautious routine in Lagos when the familiar golden glow appeared again, cutting through the moonlit waters. Before he could react, Zara's radiant form surged toward him, her eyes burning with a mixture of triumph and possessiveness. Without a word, she seized him with the power of her currents, lifting him effortlessly off the ground. The villagers who had gathered along the river bank gasped and took a step back, uncertain whether to intervene.
But there was nothing they could do. Zara's magic was formidable, and Emeka, despite his human strength, was powerless against her grasp. The water around them swirled violently as they descended beneath the surface. Emeka's mind raced with panic, but he forced himself to remain calm. He knew that any sign of struggle would only worsen his predicament. As the currents carried him deeper into her realm, the familiar shapes of luminous kelp, coral spires, and glowing creatures surrounded him. The underwater world that had once fascinated him now felt like a cage of brilliance, terrifying in its perfection. Zara stopped in a vast open expanse at the heart of her realm. Sea beings of every size and shape had gathered there, their luminescent forms flickering like stars in the dark water. They swirled around, murmuring in awe as Zara's golden light bathed the entire gathering in brilliance. The currents rippled with energy, and the air seemed charged with anticipation. "Behold," Zara announced, her voice echoing with authority and pride. "This man, Emeka, belongs to me. He has learned, he has grown, and he has returned to the waters where he truly belongs. From this moment, he is mine forever." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices blending into a chorus of celebration. Creatures swirled and darted, some bowing in respect, others performing elegant dances of approval. Emeka could see the admiration and envy in their eyes, the fascination and desire to be near him, as though he were a prize displayed for all to see. Yet amidst the dazzling lights and the festive energy, Emeka's heart sunk. His golden-tinted skin glimmered under the light, a stark reminder of the bond he still could not sever. Every cheer, every celebratory swirl of movement reminded him that he was trapped once more, a prize of this mystical world. He realized that he could not trust the distraction of the festivities to conceal his fear. Zara floated closer, her golden aura blending with the ambient glow, and wrapped him gently in a current that kept him suspended. Her expression softened for a moment, a rare glimpse of warmth in her commanding presence. "See how they rejoice for you, Emeka," she said, her voice low and persuasive. "You are admired, respected, and envied. You belong here, with me, and with the waters. Do not doubt your place." Emeka forced a nod, though inside he was terrified. He could see the eyes of Serafina lurking at the edges of the crowd, the envy and longing barely restrained. He could feel the currents pressing against him, not violently, but as a gentle reminder of his captivity. Every celebration, every praise was a gilded cage, beautiful to behold, but impossible to escape if he let his guard down. Inwardly, Emeka began to plan, carefully measuring Zara's movements, observing the other sea beings, and calculating the distance to the passages that could one day lead him back to the surface. He had been forced back into her world, presented as her possession, yet he would not allow this moment to crush his spirit. For now, he smiled politely, played the part of the grateful captive, and hid the terror that churned within him. The gathering continued, full of music-like currents, shimmering dances, and celebrations of his supposed loyalty. Emeka floated amidst the crowd, golden and trapped, aware that every moment here strengthened Zara's claim. But in his mind he swore that he would find another way, another opportunity to escape the depths, to break the bond, and finally reclaim his freedom.
The heart of Zara's realm was alive with shimmering lights, swirling currents, and the jubilant cries of the mystical beings celebrating Emeka's supposed allegiance. He floated at the center, golden-tinged skin reflecting the radiant glow around him, his every movement observed with admiration and envy alike. Yet beneath the surface of celebration, Emeka's mind was a storm of conflict.
He watched the sea beings dance and cheer, their forms twisting and spinning in the water, luminous and ethereal. Their excitement should have made him feel powerful, even privileged, but instead it pressed upon him like chains. He thought of Lagos, the dry sun on his skin, the bustling markets, the laughter of neighbors, the simple smells of grilled fish and fresh bread. Every memory of land life tugged at him, reminding him of the freedom he had almost tasted and the human world he longed to return to. But here, in Zara's realm, there was wonder beyond comprehension. The currents carried music, voices blended into harmonious waves, and light danced off coral towers like captured sunlight. He could breathe, move freely, and even feel a strange exhilaration at being admired, respected, and envied by beings of immense beauty and power. He realized that part of him could understand why anyone might be tempted to stay here, to submit entirely to the marvels of this otherworldly existence. And yet, he could not forget the golden shackles of her bond. Zara's hold over him was not merely physical, it was emotional, spiritual, and magical. Every smile she gave him, every touch of the currents reminded him that she could claim him fully, bending him to her will if he faltered. Serafina and the other envious sea beings were watching too, their hidden intentions barely restrained, adding pressure to every decision he made. Emeka closed his eyes for a moment, trying to silence the whirling thoughts. Duty, freedom, fear, curiosity, longing, each feeling clashed violently within him. Duty to himself demanded that he reclaim his life on land, to sever the magical connection and return to the safety of the world he knew. Fear whispered that one misstep could cost him his life or deepen Zara's control over him forever. Desire and curiosity tempted him to explore more of this mystical world, to experience the wonders he could never hope to find on land, and even to consider staying, if only a part of him could learn to embrace it. He imagined telling Zara no, standing firm against her dominance and risking the wrath she had already demonstrated. Could he muster the courage? Could he outwit the very being who had created his golden form and bound him to her currents? Or would he be forever a spectacle, a golden prize displayed in the depths, admired yet trapped, envied yet enslaved? As the celebration swirled around him, Emeka felt a subtle tremor of clarity. The choice was not only between land and sea, freedom and captivity. It was between yielding to fear and preserving his autonomy. He could not ignore the lessons he had learned, the instincts he had developed, and the cunning that had allowed him to escape once before. But he also knew that any misstep could destroy him. Zara floated closer, her golden aura glowing warmly, and Emeka's heart raced. Her voice, soft yet commanding, cut through the currents. "Do not hide your heart, Emeka. You belong here with me, in the waters that give life and power. Choose wisely, for the eyes of all the sea beings are upon you." Emeka's gaze shifted between her and the swirling crowd of mystical beings. His mind spun with possibilities, risks, and consequences. He could feel the weight of every moment pressing down on him, the gravity of the decision he had to make. One choice could determine not only his fate, but the nature of his very soul, tied to water or reclaimed by land, bound to Zara or free in his own human world. Inwardly, he swore he would find the path that preserved both his life and his freedom. But which path that would be, he did not yet know. The currents danced around him, the golden glow reflected in his eyes, and the celebration continued, masking the turmoil that churned deep within his heart.
The celebration around him seemed to fade into a blur. Golden lights shimmered in the currents. Sea beings danced and twirled, but Emeka's eyes were fixed on Zara. She floated closer, her molten gold hair fanning around her like sunlight trapped in liquid form. Her gaze held him in place, beautiful, powerful, and unyielding. Her hand reached out, brushing against his arm with a touch that sent shivers through him, simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. "You belong to me, Emeka," Zara whispered, her voice both soft and commanding. "Forever. You will stay here, beneath the waters, by my side. There is no escape this time." The current swirled around them, lifting her form and his together in a slow, deliberate embrace. Emeka could feel the warmth of her aura pressing against him, the seductive pull of the realm threatening to drown every rational thought. Emeka's heart pounded in his chest. Every instinct screamed at him, the lessons he had learned, the struggles he had endured, the fleeting moments of freedom he had fought to taste. Yet standing here, golden-skinned and surrounded by marvels he could scarcely describe, he realized that his choice would define the rest of his life. One decision could secure freedom, or it could bind him forever to a world both beautiful and suffocating. He thought of Lagos, the sun on his skin, the smell of fried fish in the market, the laughter of children playing in the streets, and the quiet comfort of the village that had sheltered him after his escape. Each memory tugged at him with the weight of life itself, reminding him of the world he might lose if he stayed. And yet, he also thought of the realm below, of the strange beauty that Zara embodied, of the wisdom she had given him, and of the strange allure of the underwater world. He had seen things no human could ever know, met beings who lived in ways unimaginable, and glimpsed the power that Zara commanded. Part of him wondered if a life with her could ever bring true satisfaction, if surrendering to the currents might offer more than the mundane struggles of land ever could. Zara's fingers brushed his cheek, her gaze softening, yet there was a quiet intensity in her eyes. "Do not resist, Emeka," she murmured. "The waters welcome you. The sea is your home, and I am your guide, your protector, and your companion. Trust in me, and all will be well." Emeka swallowed hard, feeling the invisible weight of the bond that still tied him to her. Every celebration, every admiration from the mystical beings, and every lesson she had taught him now pressed upon him like a golden chain. He clenched his fists, his mind racing, weighing every possible choice. Could he truly leave the waters, break the bond, and risk her wrath? Or would surrendering ensure his survival but trap him forever in a life not entirely his own? Time seemed to slow. The currents of the underwater world moved around them like a living tapestry, shimmering with 1,000 colors, yet Emeka could not focus on the beauty. All he felt was the gravity of the decision before him. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every breath a moment closer to the choice that could define the rest of his existence. He looked into Zara's eyes, searching for any hint, any clue, any way to gauge what she would do if he resisted. And in that instant, Emeka realized that he would have to make the biggest decision of his life, and that once he acted, there would be no turning back. But before he could speak, move, or act, the currents swirl, the golden lights flicker, and Zara's voice echoes in his mind. "You belong to me, Emeka.
forever.